Not only does Amanita provide ibotenic acid and muscimol for both sides of that process, but it's also going to provide glutamine. Hi, I am Amanita Dreamer, your expert on the Amanita muscaria mushroom. You'll notice that there are no ads here, and my community has also been demonetized for censorship. So you can support the work that I do at mushroomvoice.com if you would like to learn anything about Amanita muscaria, censorship-free and much better organized. Please go to amanitadreamer.net. I want to talk to you about glutamine. And if you're in this community in any way at all, if you're interested in Amanita for whatever reason that you're using it for, and there are many different reasons, there's a decent chance that the amino acid glutamine is going to be important for you. And that's why I'm making an entire video about it. So I'll read this off to you real quick. Glutamine is a versatile amino acid that serves as a building block for proteins and supports critical bodily functions, including immune cell health, gut integrity, and muscle repair and growth. It acts as a major energy source for rapidly dividing cells, particularly in the immune systems and intestines, and helps regulate nitrogen transport, acid-base balance in the body, and antioxidant production in the body. The body can produce its own glutamine naturally, but it can also be supplemented, especially to aid recovery during times of stress or illness. Translation then, that means that it's involved when the body is under an extreme amount of stress. So you have a process for your cells to reproduce under normal circumstances, but when you're under extreme stress, then there's a rapid cell turnover process. And that process needs higher levels of glutamine to do that. An amino acid makes proteins, and your cells have proteins in them, and they make up the proteins in your body. And protein is more than just muscle. It is the structural framework for your cells. So the kind of stress that they're talking about are when you get really, really sick, or when you're suffering from panic attacks and anxiety, or you have been on long-term pharmaceuticals that have damaged your body, or you are coming off of a substance, or you have been through long periods of dependence on substances that have harmed your body. These put the body in extreme states of stress. And under those extreme states of stress, you are doing rapid turnover. We have telomeres in our cells that tell our bodies that cell's times that it can be made again and again and again and reproduced. But when you reach the end of that telomere, the cell dies and it will not be created again. So one skin cell can make the same skin cell again and again and again. That is youth. Aging then is when you continue to have cell turnover of every cell in your body until it reaches the end of its lifespan, which is coded in a telomere. When you reach that end, there is no more for that cell, and that is aging. If you go under extreme stress for long periods of time, it ages you. That's what they mean by stress will age you, is it causes more rapid turnover of those cells. Instead of lazy or normal functioning turnover, it speeds that turnover up because those cells are full of toxins. Once you reach the end of the numbers of times that cell can turn over and reproduce, it will not do that anymore. And that's one less cell you'll have in your body. Multiplied by millions, you get rapid aging. And we see people that have gone through a lot of stress, we say, oh, they look rough. They look rough because they've reached the end of that cell's ability to continue to renew itself. L-glutamine is involved in this, but antioxidants can help reverse this process, slow down this process, or heal this process. So what L-glutamine does then in the body is help create rapid turnover of those cells to get you through that temporary stressful time. But if it does not have the L-glutamine the glutamine that it needs to do that, you're going to start having breakdowns in the body, and you'll feel it and you'll suffer from it. So let me read off the list to you of some symptoms of low glutamine. Are frequent bloating, gas, and cramping, starting to have food sensitivities and poor tolerance for foods, and that list just keeps getting longer. Leaky gut-like symptoms like food sensitivities or just general inflammation after eating. Poor stool consistency, and slow gut healing after an illness or after having to take antibiotics, having gut issues. getting sick more often or taking longer to recover when you get sick, and more frequent colds or infections, wounds that are slower to heal, having in general higher inflammation or autoimmune flares, feeling worse, muscle wasting or loss of lean mass tissue, delayed recovery after workouts, feeling more sore than usual, especially if you are used to exercising regularly, or having fatigue or a crash after you work out or train. Mentally, brain fog, poor ability to focus or pay attention, feeling run down all the time when you're under stress. It says difficulty handling physical or emotional stress. That's more likely just a lot of anxiety, ruminating thoughts, panic attacks. Why this is relevant to our community and people that are interested in using Amanita muscaria is because glutamine breaks down into glutamate and ammonia. Glutamate then is what starts to feed into that balance between fight or flight. The glutamate pathways will affect your ability to learn, have visual acuity, and commit things to memory, to be able to focus, to be able to pay attention, to start a task, to know the steps of that task and stay motivated through those steps and complete a task. The ability to move through social interactions, to meter those interactions and to feel confident in those interactions. And then especially the NMDA receptors, where we deal a lot more with focus, planning, learning, and creativity. Those things though, glutamate and those glutamate pathways, that will then lead into the conversion into GABA, A and B. Benzodiazepines affect GABA B. And if you've been on benzodiazepines, there's a chance that you've damaged a lot of those receptors or you're in the process of healing those. And then Amanita muscaria fits into GABA A receptors. So these are things outside of our bodies that affect GABA A and GABA B. But what glutamine can do when it's turned into glutamate and then it is converted, it can convert then into fit into both receptors, both GABA receptors. Those GABA receptors are what help us calm down, not have panic, be resilient, okay, have good thoughts after something that's stressful. But those of us in this community are here trying to use Amanita because we have a breakdown in the balance between those glutamate sides and those GABA sides. And we have different reasons for being here in this community. Because of this, we probably have low glutamine, or you may notice yourself in those low glutamine pathways. And this is why glutamine is so important, having it readily available for the glutamate and then conversion into GABA pathways. So not only does Amanita work by plugging into glutamate pathways and acetylcholine pathways, but then it can also plug into the GABA A pathways on both sides, which is why I tell you to make the tea recipe, because you'll have both ibotenic acid and muscimol from Amanita muscaria to then use. And if you want to know how to make the tea, it's at amanitadreamer.net under the prep and dosing playlist. Not only does Amanita provide ibotenic acid and muscimol for both sides of that process, but it's also going to provide glutamine that your body can naturally then take and plug into and use as glutamate and convert to natural GABA in the body as it exists. So remember that I told you it breaks down into glutamate and ammonia, and then we need to be able to clear ammonia out of the body. And that's another whole thing that you can go research about the effects of slow clearing of ammonia in the body or too rapid of a clearing of ammonia in the body. But also nitrogen is important. We have very tightly controlled amounts of nitrogen in our bodies. And one of the ways that you can get nitrogen out of the soil is to take it up as glutamine. And that's what Amanita muscaria does. It gets the nitrogen it needs to make ibotenic acid, but it also gets the glutamine that it needs to move the nitrogen around its body. And then we can consume that and use the glutamine and the nitrogen molecules in the ways that our body wants to use them, which is what this whole video was about. It gives you different places to jump off from to do your own research about glutamine and how you might want to use glutamine. But I wanted you to understand one of the health benefits of Amanita muscaria is that it can provide a lot of glutamine for those of us who may be deficient in glutamine, and it might be one extra thing that Amanita muscaria is beautiful for in the way that it works and things that it can provide for us. That's all for now. I love you, beautiful people.